Today I fucked up by telling my parents I was gay to avoid their arranged marriage proposals. So I'm pretty straight, maybe slightly bi if we count femboys. Let's get that out of the way first. I'm also an Indian American male around 26 years of age. I'd also like to clear up some misconceptions around arranged marriage. A lot of non-Indians seem to think it's literally your parents choose who you marry and that's that, but that's not really the case. Instead, it's more like your parents tap their network to find potential partners for you. If you like each other's pics, then you guys meet in person and then you decide whether or not you want to get married. So basically your parents are Tinder and you get a meeting or two to decide whether or not you want to get married. It's not quite as bad as many of you think it is, but the whole process feels super rushed and I'd rather date someone before I figure out if we're compatible or not. Anyways, my parents have recently been getting on my case about getting married. Apparently I'm getting older, need to settle down and give them grandchildren or something like that. Basically every time I see them, which is fairly often since they live close by, they have a new potential match for me, a picture of some new girl, and ask me if I'd be willing to meet her. It's honestly super annoying, but I'm too non-confrontational to really put my foot down and say, I don't want an arranged marriage. After all, if I do, there'd be an argument or at minimum some interrogation about why I don't want one. Anyways, I was thinking of ways I could get them to stop harassing me about getting married, and the idea in the title popped up in my head. I decided it'd be a lot easier to just come out as gay than to explain why I didn't want an arranged marriage. My parents were fairly conservative but weren't the types to disown their kids, and if I just said I was gay I'd have a solid reason to not get an arranged marriage. I didn't like girls. So that's what I ended up doing last time I was visiting. They were showing me pictures of some girl and I just looked them in the eyes and said, "Mom, Dad, I'm gay." They got really quiet and awkward and asked me if I was sure, and I said yes. My mom told me they'd love me no matter what and to do what makes me happy. My dad was a lot more awkward and quiet but later gave me a similar talk about how he was a bit uncomfortable with the idea, but recognizes that times are changing and I should do what makes me happy. Overall I did feel kinda bad because of how genuinely my parents seemed to respond to me, but was happy with the result. They stopped giving me arranged marriage proposals and stopped showing me pictures of girls. That is until last weekend. I visited them as usual and was greeted by my mom, who was more excited than usual. She sat me down and pulled out a binder with a bunch of pictures of guys. Apparently my parents had spent the last month or so looking for any and all gay Hindu Indian men who I could potentially marry. So now I guess I'm dealing with the exact same shit, but instead of being greeted with pictures of cute Indian girls I get to see pictures of gay Indian dudes instead. Fuck my life lol. At this point the plan is to either find a girlfriend and tell my parents she totally turned me straight, or maybe marry a twink or smthnidk. Too long did not read. Told my parents I was gay so they would stop pestering me with arranged marriage matches, start potential gay suitors instead. Your parents really played the progressive reverse Uno card. We wholeheartedly accept these new terms and conditions. Challenge accepted. OP's parents, probably. This is fucking hilarious and it serves you right, LMAO. This is life's way of saying you gotta either learn how to set boundaries or deal with your parents bugging you about it. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. Sit 'em down and be honest. It's the only long-term solution. Ask them if you like one of the binder girls if you can date well before marriage. Good luck, brother. She sat me down and pulled out a binder with a bunch of pictures of guys. I was gonna post this as a joke, but the reality is 100 times better. Your mom probably. I don't care if my son is straight or gay, I just want him to get married. Today I fucked up by giving my germaphobe girlfriend a vibrator for her birthday. Some weeks ago my girlfriend bought the gaming chair that has a massaging feature. After noticing this feature was just a small motor inside a pillow, she got curious, took it off, and used it to stimulate herself. The thing is, she has germophobia, and right after doing it she realized what she did and started panicking. She then called me, told me the story, and I managed to calm her down. At the end I asked her if she would like a proper vibrator, as she never had one before. She said, maybe, but with a clearly positive intonation and a smirk. Fast forward to her birthday. I should mention that her birthday is an extremely special day for her where everything must go perfect and she wants to be treated like a princess. Well, I bought her a vibrator online and gave it to her. After seeing the completely white box, her face changed and she said she had an idea of what it was and then opened it. She immediately started panicking, saying that someone probably used it before and returned, so it was probably infected with many diseases and germs. She then started asking what I touched in the room after touching the box and saying everything now was contaminated and she would never be able to be in the room again. She cried a lot and got deeply sad with me. Needless to say, the dinner I planned for weeks was completely awkward. Too long did not read. I gave my germaphobe girlfriend a vibrator for her birthday, which triggered her phobia, leading to a mental, emotional breakdown. She might need to be treated for this. For now, what you can do is always make sure it stays in a hermetic box and wash it in front of her so she can be sure it's clean and germ-free. Don't tell her this, but such thing as germ-free doesn't exist even in surgery, so. Bruh. This girl needs therapy. Buy her that instead of sex toys. But you might go bankrupt. Oof, that sounds like a tough day-to-day life. Ever considered therapy? As someone who sold sex toys for 3 years, unless you bought the toy from some sketch website, plenty of legit adult toy dealers, that toy certainly was not used and returned. I had people try to fight me for not accepting returns, but we stuck to our guns cause that's gross. Obviously a stranger's reassurance online won't help, but her reaction concerns me that that's her first thought. Yeah, that's not a normal reaction, and obsessions like these tend to get worse over time. Presumably you do not want to end up with an agoraphobic GF. She will need therapy. I hope things get better for her. Today I fucked up by getting my kid to read the school announcements over the PA system. So my 12-year-old son, who was very shy, has been coming out of his shell. Trying new things, putting himself out there in ways he never would have a few years ago. Participating in choir and plays, joining teams. His school recently got a new principal who is somewhat of a buzzkill. She fenced off a hill that kids used to sled down during the winter. She hired more lunch and hallway monitors to supervise kids, and she started reading the school announcements herself. The previous principal would have staff and students read the announcements that were relevant to them. If the announcement pertained to the basketball team or the chess club, someone from the basketball team or chess club had to come down to the office and read it. Here's where the fuck up starts. I work with the school board in a professional capacity, and last Friday, during a meeting with senior leadership and principals, I ran into my son's new principal. I lamented the change and suggested that kids enjoyed reading the announcements. Her complaint was that there would always be 10 kids in the office taking turns and she just wanted it to be streamlined. But, she came up with the idea of having 1 kid each week who would read all of the announcements. My son would be the first. He was thrilled. Monday and Tuesday announcements go off without a hitch. Wednesday, however, threw him a curveball. The principal decided that on tarmac-only days, that is when the grass was wet and the fields muddy, kids would not be allowed to play with any balls. You know exactly where this is headed. The principal dutifully wrote up an announcement with the words, "No balls," in bold. My son read the announcement as written, adding emphasis where she did. He did, however, improvise. And name-dropped his friends. And teachers. Mrs. Smith would like to announce that on tarmac-only days, students are not to play with balls at recess. There will be no balls allowed on tarmac-only days. That's disappointing. I don't know what she has against balls, but there will be no balls played with today. Mrs. Smith doesn't want us playing with balls. I know Jackson Cooper, his best friend, loves playing with balls. He's not picky, he'll play with any balls. Mr. Jones, the gym teacher, lets us play with balls every day. We also have lots of fun. And then she turned off the mic. He was suspended and sent home. I have already had a conversation with the superintendent and he's going to overrule the suspension. My son's teacher, a friend of mine from way back, said it was the funniest thing he's ever heard because it was completely deadpan. Too long did not read. My kid read the announcements, added a few innuendos and got suspended. It was the funniest thing he's ever heard because it was completely deadpan. A day without laughter is a day wasted. That's pretty ballsy of her to suspend your son when she was the one who created the stupid no balls rule. Former teacher. Man, this is exactly why I always attached specific adjectives whenever I had to talk about recess or sports balls at school. Your son is actually getting suspended because he will never be able to comply with the no balls policy. Your son is the hero we needed.